Yeah.
What is up, guys and girls? This is Wednesday Wrath Edition, straight from the chest. Justin Groff, that is me. I'm your host, guys. Listen, I'm thankful to be on this podcast today because I want to invite you in a little bit of a story of my past, and it's been on my heart lately. It has everything to do with what I want to speak on today, and it is circulating around potential. And guys, I know that there are people out there that have people in their lives or people that they remember that they just remembered to have that person having so much potential enlaced in them. And that is a lot of times can be distracting from who we are, because we see these people with so much potential and we almost try to live up to what they are, especially if it's coming at a young age and we see these we see these people, or we're involved with these people at a young age. A lot of times that when we encounter these people, we don't want to tell them of their potential. We don't want to recognize their potential, even though we recognize it ourselves. But because that's a state of humility and vulnerability, and maybe we're not used to advocating that, we just kind of stray away from that person, because essentially they're giving off this scent of so much potential, and it kind of hinders our spirit a little bit, because we're saying this person's really good. This person's really good at what they do. They're good at what I want to be good at, and we can potentially get sidetracked with insecurity. Now, that is, I think, a part of the process of evolving as a mature adult, and recognizing when people are good and also identifying what you're good at and your potential. But this story dates back to when I was in 5th grade and I met this person. And this guy was, out of the gate, you could tell he was so energetic, had this aura around him. And everybody in the play yard circled around him, and they were following him without him even leading anything. You know, and this is in 5th grade. I remember this. And I'll, for sake of some people might knowing who he is, I'm not going to use his name. But he was one of my best friends. And I remember even myself being the leader that I am now. I wasn't that way when I was young, and I was a follower. And I can say that now with humility, because it was just the way that I was designed. Well, not designed. It was the way that I was back in those days. I was suppressed in terms of and confused with who I was, and really I wasn't happy with the way I looked. And so in that I'm bringing up a lot, but that was something that there were struggles within me that I dealt with, that, you know, my parents, my mom knew. I think she knew real well. But there were certain things about my look that I didn't really like, because I compared myself to other boys at that age, at the age of 11. But that, I don't know, I think that's just kind of common with all of us. And I think it's even stemming out from I think it's now presenting itself at an earlier age with girls and boys. But I remember this guy having so much fellowship, and he was a good looking kid, and he had a lot of girls, and so naturally us guys want to gravitate to that. We want to have more of that. And so I remember just him being such a smart kid. He was so smart, and he was so good with words. Even at a young age, he was very persuasive. And when you're a persuasive individual, you can use that to your benefit, or you can use it and you can use it for good purposes, or you can use it for bad purposes. But the thing that hindered him from living into his potential was how he was raised, who his parents were, and what his background was. Because he came to our school in 5th grade from the Bay Area. And when he moved, he had a stepdad. And his real dad was murdered. And he never really knew his real dad. And he was raised by a stepdad, which in the community's eyes, this stepdad was an upholding citizen. But the way he was behind closed doors was not. And this, my friend, got the brunt end of the stick. And, he was verbally, physically abused. And he still came to school as having this aura about him that you wanted to follow. And he, naturally, his position at home ended up showing up at school. He got in fights. He ended up getting in a lot of trouble, and it became an identity with him. Wherever he went, trouble followed, trouble ensued. And even to the point where my mom was advocating that I don't hang out with him anymore, because we would go somewhere stupid like the movies, and we'd get kicked out of the movies because of stuff that he would pull. And it's just like, you knew deep down that wasn't who he was. Even at that age, I could minutely identify it. My mom could, my dad could. The teachers knew that there was something special within him. But because of his environment, because of how he was raised, because of the death of his dad, he never fully lived into his potential. And I know we know those people. There are people in our lives that we see to this day that we're like, you got so much potential, dude. You got so much potential. And we speak that clarity, that inspiration in them. And hopefully they do something with it. Hopefully it helps them to identify what they're really naturally good at and helps them to live into that. Because that very well could be their purpose and their stamp on this earth. But now, my friend, because of his past, because of the circumstances that he was in, and because of this situation with his stepdad, etc., well, he followed that path, that troublesome path, all throughout middle school, high school, didn't even really get into high school that much. He's in prison now. And he's been in prison for years. Now prison is his identity. So much so that he has another name in prison that he goes off of. And he's a shot caller, and he's a leader in his gang. And he's known in the prison system by other inmates. That is his identity now. But you know what's real? Is the potential still enlaced in him. He still has the potential to be something of magnitude. Now, here's where the devil sits in. The devil knew this about him before he was even born. And that's why what happened to him wasn't just the byproduct of him being in that dysfunctional family. It started before that. I believe it started with his dad's death. Because the enemy knew what he was doing from that standpoint. He knew, what if, let's just say what if my friend was going to be such an impact on this planet, maybe be, I don't know, he was a great songwriter. He was a musician at heart, it seemed like. He was a good speaker. What if he was the next Tony Robbins? What if he was the next, what if he was the next Billy Idol? I don't know, I'm just throwing things off the top of my head. What if he was the next big thing in songwriting, in motivational speaking? What if he was the next big thing? And what if he could impact so many people on such a high level with his leadership qualities and his ability to captivate and draw you in and be able to persuade you, but persuade you for your progression, not in terms of manipulation? What if? Now, we don't know that because we don't know his journey. We don't know his life. We don't know his end game. But the devil does. Just like the devil knows your end game and knows what you could be through God. If you align yourself with God and his will for you, he knows the destruction you could bring to his kingdom, to the devil's kingdom. And that is derailing to him, because he knows that if you live into your potential, you have the ability to possibly circumvent the world in a way that it hasn't seen yet. And that's what I believe he was doing with him. I don't know necessarily if that was my friend's path, if he was going to be the next Tony Robbins or the next Billy Idol, or I don't know why I say Billy Idol. I just can't think of anybody. I'm talking about somebody that's influential. Could be that, could be Les Brown, it could be anybody. But he was just, there was so much potential harboring within him from an early age, and you could see it. There was more than just what he would say. It was the way in which he spoke. It was his aura. It was his energy. And he was coming from a battered family. But see, the enemy knew what he was doing beforehand. And that's why he wiped his father out in the way that he did. And I believe his father was even prone to the system. He was in the system as well. And he didn't have the best course in life as well. But see, it possibly could have been all a manifestation to not have my friend come into his purpose, because he knew that if he did, and by he, I mean the devil, knew that if he came into his purpose, it was game over for a lot of different people. And I mean people on the enemy's end, not people on the good end. I mean, he was going to be a positive change, a positive revelation in people's lives. But because the enemy took him out, I doesn't have to worry about that anymore. And now the enemy doesn't really worry about my friend, I don't feel anymore, because my friend spent the last third of his life in prison. He may be a leader in prison, but what good is that right now? The enemy, I feel like the enemy right now is just laughing. And he doesn't even pay any attention to my friend, because he's now not a threat to him anymore. But he once was. And you know how I know that? Because I could see the potential in him at 11. And that speaks volumes, because I could see at 11 his potential at 11 years old, when I was 11. Do you know how loud that has to be for an 11-year-old to dissect potential in another 11-year-old? That's major. Extrapolate that till he's 30 years old. He would have been a game changer. He would have. He would have been magnificent in anything he did because he embodied talent on a couple different levels. But because of his family orientation, because of his dysfunctional household, he couldn't live into his potential. He could have if he had been stronger and there had been a way made for him in his mind that he had made up his mind he wasn't going to live this way, that he wasn't going to accept this as his life. But what choices do you have when you're 11 and you live under your parents' discretion and you live in a household that is abusive both physically and verbally? What do you live into? You almost don't have a chance. The only chance you have is God. And if you're not subjecting yourself and submitting yourself to him, then it is so hard to get out of that. Now, where he's at, it's not like this is the end either. He could make it out of this as well. And there could be a testimony in front of him for the future. There has been before with people that have been in worse circumstances than him. But how possible do you think that is? When this is what he's known for the better part of over a third of his life. Do you think he's going to come out of this? The reason why this resonates with me is because the reason why this sits is hard with me because he was very close to me and he had so much potential, and his potential is almost wasted. I say almost because there's a chance for him to come back into his purpose, his predestined orientation of his potential. But what are the odds that that's going to happen? Slim. A lot of times we run across people in our lives that they don't see their own potential. They don't know what they're good at. They don't know where they shine. And a lot of times God will open your eyes to the clear-cut identity of that person. And he'll give you the urgency to tell that person what you've identified and what you've recognized in them. And I think it's your job to deliver that message when you feel it. That could be in any regard. But I think it's your job to deliver that message because you don't know what that person's going through in their life at the moment. You don't know what kind of abuses they're going through or what kind of restraints they're being confined by. You don't know, and you don't know what those words might do to that person's spirit, what might lift them up, what might inspire them, give them motivation, or give them new initiative to take. You don't know what effect your words have, but I'm telling you, they have massive effect. You don't have to speak a certain way. You don't have to illustrate things a certain way. You do not. All you have to do is be obedient in what God is speaking through you. You just have to be obedient in delivering the word of potential, predestined purpose in that person that you see in front of you. Don't let it fall by the wayside. Don't let it go another day without you saying something. Say something, because your words might be the catalyst to that person's ignition of their purpose in life. We just don't know. That's why we have to be obedient. We have to listen to that voice that tells us, talk, say it, say it, say it now. Don't let your insecurities or your own pre-manufactured thoughts of who you want to be get in the way of who that person is. That may be exactly what that person needs to hear to catapult them and put them in a new trajectory. It's easy to get suppressed as you grow older. It's easy to get suppressed in who you were made to be or the seeds that God has planted inside of you, because we at a young age in the school systems, we're around our teachers predominantly for for a long period of the day. And our teachers in this classroom full of 30, 35 kids, they're teaching a principle one way, and they're expecting 30 to 35 kids to retain it the same way. That doesn't necessarily work all the time. And what I mean by that is when a teacher is speaking something and teaching something, illustrating something, and the classroom is supposed to receive it a certain way, but maybe one or two or three different kids aren't receiving it the way that they're supposed to receive it, the teacher is combating against that and telling that kid, well, you have this issue here, you have this issue, and blah, 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 and taking up with their parents is that kid has an issue, when maybe that issue may be the catalyst to that person's growth and that person's purpose in life. It's not a derailment. It's not a fault. That's the way that they were designed. But you as a teacher are suppressing that in that individual. You're suppressing and making a distraction of what is supposed to be for their inherent acceleration in life. You're making a mockery of that because that's not the way that you were taught in the curriculum to teach this particular thing. And because the kid can't receive it, well, there must be something wrong with them. Maybe there's something wrong with you. Maybe there's something wrong with the way you're illustrating it. Maybe the way that you're illustrating it isn't coming off the way, or isn't being received well with an individual because maybe they're too bright for you. Maybe they have genius type neurological platforms that you can't even understand because you're not at that level yet. But because it's a 11-year-old kid, you think, well, no, this is I'm here, they're there, and that's the way it is because I'm an adult and I'm blah, blah, blah. Maybe you're wrong as a teacher, and maybe you're suppressing the potential of that person, of that child. So as they grow up through the school system, they're continuously suppressed and made to only speak at a certain time and made to think a certain way because that is what our school systems teach. So it's no wonder why there are not more Bill Gates in this world. There's no wonder why there are not more LeBron James, Kobe Bryant. There's no wonder why there's not more Warren Buffetts, because people are suppressed at an early age and they're taught to be a certain way. By chance, they migrate through that filtration system and make it out to the other end and still stand true to the indefinite, authentic brewing that's within them, in their spirit, to culminate and cultivate that seed that's in them, is the only way that they'll be thriving in their purpose. Sometimes that happens. Most of the time it doesn't. That's why this podcast exists. That's why I speak so intently on purpose. You may get tired of hearing about it. That's okay, because everybody needs to come into their purpose, period. That's it. You come into your purpose, you come into alignment with God, That's life. You have life figured out at that point. That's all. It's all it's about. It's about coming into alignment with your Creator and coming into your purpose. That is life. You understand? That is it. Those two things. Simple, but so challenging. Because the person that has it out for you has had it out for you before you were born. And has affected your lineage from before you were even created. But the good news is God is here to pick you up by your bootstraps and to guide you and to empower you and to strengthen you and to enlighten you and to illustrate the magnificence that He has for your life. But it's your job to answer that call, and it's your job to be obedient. But you already have a predestined potential in you. It was given to you from before you were born. But that is the thing that is of direct hatred for the enemy. He hates that you have that power. He hates that you have that God-given ability or talent, because he knows that it can possibly have the potential to wipe out his orchestration. But the enemy only affects you. The enemy only combats you when he sees you as a threat, and he sees you as a large threat. So take that as a compliment. If you have all these things coming at you, if you have all these missiles flying your way, take it as a compliment, because that means you're a big threat. And that means that you have a massive exaltation in the end if you complete and dodge all these missiles, complete these tasks, and dodge all these missiles coming at you from all different directions. You have magnificent exaltation to come into. All that means, all these missiles coming at you, all these tasks being thrown at you, all these challenges trying to put you off course, that's a compliment, because that means you're a large threat to the enemy. That means that you're about to do big things. You have a predestined purpose. You have predestined potential. Live it out. I'll see you next time, guys. Sunday, I'm coming at you. Be ready. Thank you.